right, everybody, welcome to AstroTalk and Tea. This is a very special AstroTalk and Tea because it's Virgo season and I happen to be Virgo sun. So one of my favorite times of the year. Virgo season this year runs from August 22nd today through September 21st. And we always begin this talk by giving specific characteristics that are associated with the energy of the sign, this case, the sign of Virgo. So Virgos are very wise, they're very discerning and detail oriented, which can also make them quite picky in certain circumstances. Virgos are great executors. A lot of this has to do with their attention to detail. So I always say, if you are an entrepreneurial, big ideas, fiery type, you want to make sure you get a Virgo as your right-hand woman / right-hand man. They're great people to take bigger visions and kind of chunk them out into the details and to get shit done. Virgos love a good plan. They like to think about and anticipate what's coming up. Virgos love to be in control of themselves and of their environment. Sometimes they try to be in control of other people as well. And Virgos are definitely perfectionists, for better or for worse. Virgos have a lot of integrity. They really strive to do things the right way, or what they envision as the right way. They're very thorough, they're very practical, and their minds are quite analytical. In addition, Virgo is an extremely service-oriented sign, but service in a sort of a mundane, practical, hands-on kind of way. Virgos are always willing to help people who are in need. However, the one caveat to that is that Virgos are willing to help you if you agree to do things their way, because oftentimes Virgos always think they know best in every situation. Whether that's true or not, I think that's a case-by-case basis. Virgos, though, are very loving, they're very thoughtful, they're often very considerate of others in the decision-making process that goes on in their minds. Virgos, too, are incredibly earthy. It is one of the 3 earth signs of the zodiac, and some people don't often guess this, but Virgo energy is very sensual, and often I think they get mischaracterized as these really intense, harsh people who just love to clean and organize everything. And no, Virgos definitely have an earthy, witchy, sensual type of energy to them. And in addition, Virgo is really associated with health. So oftentimes, if you know anybody with strong Virgo energy in their chart, they can either be a total health nut in terms of fitness and diet and that kind of stuff. Virgos are often very into natural health as well, kind of combining their love of health with their love of the earth and things that come from the earth. And then kind of the third expression where that health thing can come out is sometimes Virgos can be major hypochondriacs. So they do have to watch out for that a little bit as well. So those are some of the fabulous qualities of Virgo energy. A couple things to watch out for. The first of which is Virgos are very hard on themselves and on others. Because they are perfectionists and they love for things to come together and to fit right just so the way they've envisioned in their mind, they sometimes conjure up these impossibly high standards that they will never meet and that the people around them will never be able to meet. So oftentimes that being really hard on oneself can be very negative for their self-esteem, and it can be detrimental to their relationships as well. In addition to that, this perfectionism thing can lead to Virgos having an issue with making mistakes. They have a hard time accepting that they are fallible and that to be fallible is natural and human and okay. So I think Virgos need to watch out for this wanting to never make a mistake. That can really inhibit the growth and learning process throughout life. So they need to learn to take their mistakes in stride and to recognize that they make mistakes, and so does every other person on this planet. Additionally, Virgos, that need for control is what makes them such great managers, executors. They're so good at overseeing things and making sure that everything unfolds just right. But I think sometimes that need for control can also then kind of go against the energy of life, really, because they need to strike the right balance between having a plan, being prepared and anticipating possible outcomes and planning for those outcomes, but then also being open to whatever it is that life and universal energy has in store for them. That's a lesson that most Virgos will learn throughout their time on this earth. And lastly, Virgos need to watch out for excess worry, anxiousness, nervousness. And a lot of times Virgo can have like this obsessive mind that just goes round and round and round and round and round and round about whatever situation or thought they're stuck on. So Virgos also do need to work on cultivating some practices that help them kind of disrupt that anxious or worry thought pattern that can send them spinning out of control. So whether or not those characteristics resonate with you personally will depend on how strong a Virgo energy you have in your own astrological chart. But regardless of that, from August 22nd through September 21st, we're all going to be swimming in this Virgo energy. So there are 4 main things that I would suggest we do during this next month. The first of which is discipline around health and wellness. So what that means, or what I'm suggesting here, is now is the time to make a list. Virgos love a list and they love to cross things off that baby. So whatever your fitness goals are, your diet goals are, and by diet I mean like just general wellness and what you're eating, treating your body right. Whatever your mental health goals might be, it's a great time to really commit to that, to write it down, to say it out loud, to say that you're going to do it and follow through, and that Virgo energy will be here really supporting you to make your way through that list and to get things done. The second thing is very detailed, precise planning, okay? So if you have something you've been wanting to do, whether that is planning for a future trip, whether that is planning to, wanting to explore different programs because you're thinking about maybe enrolling back in some type of schooling or program. Do you have a creative project or a work project that you've been trying to get off the ground? During Virgo season, no detail is too small. So this is a great time for really analyzing what it is that you want to do and coming up with an effective, detailed, step-by-step plan for how you're going to achieve or launch or start something new. The third thing is thinking about how we can all be of service during this time. So remember I talked earlier that, Virgo service, it's practical, it's actionable, it's the mundane here and now things that need to get done. So maybe this is volunteering at a local animal shelter or offering to foster an animal for a period of time. Maybe this is offering to tutor kids virtually, since all the school situations are different right now in different places. Maybe this is donating to food drives or donating your time at a local food pantry. Maybe this is getting more involved with community activism groups in your area. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, think about how you can really donate time, energy, and effort to being of service to the collective. And then lastly, it is time to organize your space. So whether that is the drawer in your kitchen that is always atrocious, whether that's the garage, whether that is your office at work, your home office space, whether that's a closet somewhere in your house, something in the basement, now's the time to like Marie Kondo all that shit. Go through things, use that Virgo, that discernment, that judgment to know like, okay, yes, this is something that is useful, valuable, I need to keep it. No, this is something that can be donated, recycled, thrown away, etc. So really kind of go through, organize, and then also cleaning, like literally get out the toilet brush, get out the grout cleaner, find the vacuum. In addition to organizing, it's a good time to clean and refresh. That is something that Virgo energy revels in. So definitely choose a space somewhere in your life that could use a little bit of help in the cleaning/organizational department and put that on your list of things to do during Virgo season. Now, thinking about healing modalities during the season, what can that look like for each of us? So first, let's talk about, if you are someone who has a physical yoga practice and asana practice, this is a great time to drill down into the technical details of certain poses. So in your home practice, or if you take classes, like instead of, moving through 20 different poses in a class, maybe at the time that you're practicing, you choose 5 poses and you really think about the small, subtle movements in your body, in your muscles to kind of guide you deeper into the pose. maybe you think a little bit more and work a little bit more on the connection between your breathing at different stages of a pose, physical yoga pose, etc. Looking more broadly at a yoga practice, like Virgo season is a great time to experiment with a style of yoga like Iyengar that is going to be more focused on poses versus, or I should say the details of poses, versus like a vinyasa flow class. Not saying you can't do any of that during this time. All yoga is wonderful, but something more along the lines of Iyengar is the energy that is really supported by Virgo energy that's all around us right now. Thinking about, meditation or breath work, I would say a couple things. One, if you tend to experience that Virgo, like worry, anxiousness, nervousness, spinning mind, alternate nostril breathing is a great technique to utilize in that moment when you're trying to stop and disrupt those crazy thoughts from taking over. So if you're not familiar with alternate nostril breathing, you can Google it. There's tons of great instructional videos on the internet. There's a million different teachers that you can take a look at and figure out how to do that. So that would be a great one for any type of worry or anxiety. When we think about meditation, I want to have you come back to that idea of discipline. So now is the time to set the goal of, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes, let's say, for example, 5 minutes meditating in the same space at the same time each day. And I know that might be difficult to do, just everyone's schedule is very different. However, I am asking you during this season to really commit to cultivating a meditation practice, because if you can do that over a 30-day span, I promise you it's going to work wonders for you. And I think we may have a little bit more of the drive and the discipline to get that done now than we did, let's say, during Leo season in the past 30 days. Additionally, I sometimes give herbal suggestions. I think great herbs to work with during Virgo season are ones that help us with digestion and support the stomach. So if we're thinking of tea, you could have like Tulsi tea, dandelion tea. Bitters are a great thing, liquid that you can take before you eat food that helps get your digestion going. Gentian is another great herb for digestion. Licorice can be helpful for the stomach as well if you're experiencing any digestional problems. So, checking into those herbs, doing some research, checking with your medical practitioner to see if any of those might be good ones for you to rotate in during this season. And then lastly, stones and crystals. I've picked out 2 for Virgo season, the first of which is aquamarine. Aquamarine is a really soothing energy that helps to ease stress and anxiety, specifically connected with the mind. So a lot of times during Virgo season, like when we get down into the details of things and we want to make sure everything is right and that everything gets done the way it should, we can get a little stressed out. So aquamarine kind of helps to calm that energy. And then secondarily, amber is the other stone I'm recommending. Amber's really like a resin, I guess, but amber is helpful for stopping like worry and nervousness from manifesting both in the stomach and then through the central nervous system. Because a lot of times, Virgos who cannot get that stuff under control, they do have problems with stomach and food digestion, and they can get problems with like adrenal fatigue after blowing out their central nervous system. Not blowing it out, but stressing their nervous system, etc. So yeah, check out aquamarine and amber during Virgo season. Now, turning our attention to the skies, looking at what type of astrological events we're going to have during Virgo season. I'm just going to go in chronological order. So we're going to come up to full moon in Pisces, which will be September 1st / September 2nd. So like if you're on the West Coast, September 1st late at night, I want to say it's like, 11:30 p.m. or something like that is when the full moon's going to peak, versus if you are closer to the East Coast, then of course it's going to be into the early morning hours of September 2nd. But this full moon is going to be at 11 degrees of the sign of Pisces. So if you know where 11 degrees of Pisces is in your chart, check that out. See if the moon's going to make any aspects to something in your personal chart. But for all of us, Pisces full moons, they're extremely psychic full moons. So you might get some really cool like information or downloads or intuitive feelings about things. I would suggest, Pisces energy is one that has trouble with boundaries, for better or for worse. So the cool thing about that is that like The veil can be very thin between our conscious self and our subconscious self. Also the veil between us and whatever out there greater than us. That can be a time where we get like more messages and impressions, like I was saying just a moment ago. The one thing to be careful of though with the Pisces full moon is, not being too indulgent, because when the boundaries are not as thick, sometimes we can let negative energy into our sphere. Sometimes we indulge in like substances like alcohol or drugs or things like that because we are like craving this deep experience, but we have trouble kind of controlling and containing the energy of that. So just being aware of that. I would also suggest for the Pisces full moon, keep a dream journal. Like 2 days before September 1st and 2 days after September 1st, just write down first thing when you wake up in the morning, or if you happen to wake up in the middle of the night, just write down any dreams or fragments of dreams that you can remember, and that will start to get stronger as you practice that. It'll just be really interesting to notice what comes up for you at that time. Last two things about the full moon. One, if you can watch this full moon by a body of water, I don't care if that's a lake, reservoir, creek, stream, somewhere near you, there's something really powerful about, especially because Pisces is a water sign, about seeing the illumination of the full moon, feeling that energy as you are near a body of water. And then lastly, this full moon is going to be sextile the planet Uranus. So this is a really good time at the full moon to, like, as I said before, be open to flashes of insight, new ideas. Something out of the box might come to you at that time. I think it's a really good time to meditate on new innovative solutions to old problems that you may be experiencing. And at the same time, the Pisces full moon with that Uranus element, it's a really good time to, how do I say it? It's like meditate on compassionate resolutions to problems in your own life, problems that we're experiencing in the world right now, like finding compassionate resolutions for the good of all humanity. Just like focus your energy on that and do some meditations on that if you don't have something super personal that you're wanting to work on at that time. So that's full moon in Pisces. Then about a week later, on September 9th, Mars goes retrograde. So this is significant because when a planet, a retrograde means, like, from Earth's perspective, planets are moving around in the sky, and when they go retrograde, they stop their forward motion, and it appears like they're moving backwards. They're not really, but it looks that way from Earth. And then after a certain point in time, they stop and they move forward again. So those stopping points, when a planet begins its retrograde, those are really intense times where the energy, the symbolism of that planet is really strong. So Mars is, the planet of ego, of passion, aggression, virility, sexuality, our drive, our kind of just like our general motivation, will, those types of things. So we may see a really heightened expression of that energy in ourselves or in the reflection of world events that are happening around the time of September 9th. What I'm going to suggest for Mars starting to turn retrograde is use that big energy before it uses you. So around September 9th, kind of in that week, is a great time for physical activity, maybe a little bit harder or more intense of a workout, working up a sweat. That can be a great time for healthy competitive activity. So, get a pickup basketball game going, do like races in your neighborhood with some friends in the neighborhood. If you can join like an intramural team, if that's happening in your area at this time, those are all great ways to utilize that Mars energy. But it's going to be retrograde from September 9th through November 13th. So all during that time, we're going to be looking at these themes of Mars and Aries, these themes of being a warrior for a cause and fighting the good fight and consciously and passionately fighting for the things you believe without letting anger and aggression kind of overtake you. So those are going to be themes we'll be exploring all throughout the fall. I don't think it's coincidental at all that is happening in the time leading up to the US election. So there's always connections between astrology and world events, of course. But so that is starting September 9th. Then the last kind of notable thing that I want to talk about during this Virgo season is the new moon in Virgo, which will happen on September 17th. The new moon will be at 25 degrees of Virgo. So again, you can check that out in your own personal chart. New moons are always times of setting intentions. So kind of in the few days leading up to the new moon, we're really finishing out a cycle from the previous month and beginning a new cycle. So sometimes leading up to the new moon, we do see some endings in those days, but it's so that we can plant new seeds and call in new beginnings. Since the new moon's in Virgo, Virgo is all about like discernment, it's time for trimming the fat. I'm going to use that phrase. So basically like taking stock of your life and looking at, what is working, what is not, what do you have that's extra, not necessary, not needed, doesn't really have a function in your life anymore, whether that's an attitude, a behavior, a possession. It's time to cut some of that stuff loose so that we can really focus in on the purposeful, practical things that are working for us in our lives. How do we, the Virgo new moon too could be about like how we organize the things that remain in our life after we use our discernment to cut certain things out. And the Virgo new moon is also a great time to set intentions, again, around being of service. How do you show up? How can you be of service? If you haven't been doing as much of that as you'd like to, then it's a good time to set an intention for how will you be of service more moving forward. Additionally, the Virgo new moon, it's a really interesting thing. The sun and moon are at 25 degrees of Virgo, and they're going to be squaring the nodal axis, which right now, North Node in Gemini, South Node in Sagittarius. This is kind of a whole thing, but I did want to touch on it a little bit because there's going to be some tension there. Collectively, as a humanity, during this year and a half of North Node Gemini, South Node Sagittarius, we're being asked to take our focus away from long distance exploration, being out in the world, and direct it more towards stuff that's extremely local and community focused. It's about letting go of old beliefs, old philosophies that new information kind of invalidates or proves that some of those old belief systems and things are not as valuable anymore moving forward. But that's a hard shift, that opposition. And the Virgo new moon kind of being square to that, making a tough angle, shows that there will be some like emotional and ego ties to that evolutionary energy, the direction that we're moving in, and we might have some trouble with that. We might find some tension with that in our own emotions or in our own ego, like feeling like where we're collectively moving is a challenge to ourselves and who we are and what we believe, etc. So, use the Virgo-ness of this new moon to examine the details of how is this evolutionary pattern playing out in your life. And what does that mean for you on an individual level? Instead of being, resistant to it, how can we learn to flow with that? Virgo is ultimately an adaptable sign. I wouldn't use the word flexible to describe Virgo, but I would say that once Virgo recognizes the direction that things are moving, they can adapt and get themselves on board and pretty quickly as well. So it's kind of that idea of using this Virgo energy to think about how is this collective evolution affecting us personally? How can we integrate that within ourselves and do something positive with it? All right. So there you have this month's Astro Talk and Tea Virgo season. Thank you all so much for joining me. Again, my name is Kelsey Bednar. You can connect with me on my website, theastroyogi.com, or through Instagram. My handle is at @the_astro_yogi. And I hope you guys have a great Virgo season.